Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again, but it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you.
Good evening and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It's Thursday night and it's Supermac and Gibbo that join me tonight to look back on the last 7 days at Newcastle United. Evening, lads.
Hi,
guys.
Hello, John.
Hi.
Good to see you. And as we're saying off air, we're never short of a few things to talk about with regards to Newcastle United. And as always, we'll take a lead from those people who are watching the show in the chat. And we'll start off, though, looking back at the Chelsea match, which it seems like a long time ago now. But yes, Chelsea, another defeat. One which we all expected, I think. You know, the three of us certainly expected it. What we probably didn't expect, Malcolm, was Steve Bruce to come out and tell us that he saw a lot of positives in the defeat.
It's absolutely crazy, isn't it? If he said that in a normal press conference, in normal times, journalists would have been there and they would have said, "Well, what were the good things you saw?" And they would have demanded him to list them out, wouldn't they, John?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the circumstances, Malcolm, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, and he's taking full advantage of them and finishing up talking utter nonsense. And the three of us here, we've seen Newcastle play hundreds of times between us. Did you see any improvement against Chelsea to make Steve Bruce say that?
I didn't.
No, in fact, Malcolm, what we'd seen against Everton was light years away from this. I mean, they've gone backwards again to what they were originally. I mean, it disturbs me when I hear about positives because I'm not certain whether Steve Bruce is trying to con me, trying to con all the fans, or trying to con himself or Mike Ashley, because it just doesn't add up at all. I mean, the last, I thought only ostriches put their head in the sand, but it would appear not so. It is crazy. I mean, 11 defeats in the last 15 isn't a matter of opinion, it's a matter of fact. And if we're making progress, when we've had 11 defeats in our last 15 matches, I'll stand tapping. I mean, the performance at Chelsea, in my opinion, we were totally overrun in the first half by 1 and 2 touch football. We couldn't get near them at all. They scored the 2 goals they needed. And I always had a feeling in the second half, when Newcastle were very, very passive, that if Chelsea had needed to go up from second gear at any time, they would have done so. We were exceptionally poor and we reverted back to what we have been. And I just say thank God for the bottom three, who have been the bottom three virtually all season, because without them, we would be in dire trouble. We are now, but without them, where would we be?
Yeah, but Fulham they're nicking points here and there. They looked a far better side at Burnley than Newcastle looked at Stamford Bridge. That's for sure.
Got to be thankful. I mean, we all sat and watched last night in anticipation of a draw, I suppose, and we got it last night. So I mean, that's where we're at now, lads, isn't it? Hoping that Fulham and Burnley, drop points.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that bothers me is that I think Fulham missed a real big chance last night. I think they've had 7 draws out the last 10 or whatever. They're drawing too many. They're not getting beat, but they're drawing too many. And for me, that was Fulham's big chance last night. If they'd won at Burnley and they led 1-0, if they'd won at Burnley, Newcastle, they would have only been 4 points behind Newcastle. Then they would have played on Saturday at home to Sheffield United, who are bottom. And if they won again, they would have been 1 point behind Newcastle when Newcastle went to Manchester United. And that pressure would have been huge. And I think Scott Parker missed a trick last night by not winning. Yeah. Because with if he'd won last night and it was a winnable game, if they're going to get out of it, they've got to win sometime at some place like Burnley. If they'd won last night and then won at home to Sheffield United on Saturday, Malcolm would have been down to 1 point when we went to Manchester United, and that would have been alarm bells, believe you me. As it is, if they beat Sheffield United, the pressure does go on us big time. But, we're very, very lucky that those 3 had been trailed off. Yes, they're getting points on occasions, but they're having to make up a lot of leeway, and we're very, very lucky that those 3 are where they are, because without that, we would be down now.
Mal, was it down to the formation? I mean, Joe Walker's saying, what did you make of Miggy in the centre and Gale from the right decision? I mean, look, we got hit with 3 bad injuries against Southampton. It was a much-needed 3 points, in that 3-2 win. Mission impossible, not down to 9 men. But it came with some big hits. We lost Callum Wilson. Regardless of whether half his goals were penalties, he still scored 10 goals. He's a big miss. And we lost Shaw and we've lost Manquillo. So you lose 3 players who were all playing quite well and getting Newcastle back into shape. Suddenly 3 players come in, replace those players in a formation which worked previously. They haven't adapted to it, and maybe what Joe's saying there is Miggy in the centre and Gale from the right is. Maybe they just can't play to that formation. It's not something that they're used to. Is that the problem that we had? And maybe it just takes more work on the training ground. And maybe we will get it right and we'll find the right formation to get out of this.
Playing the way that they did, the front formation, just didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. The most important thing when you're playing away from home against a really good side like Chelsea, who usually dominate a game and have the by far the most possession of the 2 sides. So that's what's going to happen. You've got to make it as difficult as you can for Chelsea, and so where you want the ball is in Chelsea's half. They're looking to get forward all the time. Well, if you keep putting the ball in the half, what you need are players who will hold on to possession, allow the rest of the team to get pushed up, and that just wasn't happening. It really wasn't happening. And so if the possession isn't held in the Chelsea half, the back 4 of Newcastle can't push forward because it's coming straight back. And the way that it was. The way that Steve Bruce played, that Almiron, he's not going to hold possession as such and just simply do that task. Nor is Gale. You need somebody who's going to hold off defenders and what have you. And that's why this time last week I said about playing Andy Carroll, and as far as I'm aware, that he's as fit as he'll ever be at the moment, and he is the one guy who will get the ball at his feet and just hold off defenders and give the defence and the midfield time to get pushed up, and then you're keeping Chelsea as far away from your goal as you possibly can, and you're giving yourself an opportunity when you're in their half that maybe all of a sudden somebody will make a run. You can knock it into their path, and away they go, and they stick it in the net. Who knows? But we didn't look as if we were going to score. We didn't look as if we were going to threaten their goal. We didn't look as if we were going to give them a problem in their own half at all. And so the defenders in the Newcastle side, they must be going out on the pitch going, oh, here we go again. Oh, no. There's no spirit in them because what they're doing is fighting the identical situation of the Alamo.
They are. I mean, John, is Andy Carroll the answer? I mean, we need to set one, one person as the replacement. I would have said, if you go horses for courses, then maybe it doesn't go well with the team. You need to find a set formation and stick with it, don't you? Really, to get out of the relegation mire.
I follow totally what you say, Steve. First, what we're talking about here is who is the best replacement for Callum Wilson at the moment. And quite frankly, the first thing I've got to say, for the sake of my own reputation, is no one is the answer to that, because Newcastle have dereliction of duty written, stamped all over their forehead, because Newcastle haven't got a striker on their books capable or warranting a regular first-team place, either as Wilson's partner or now as his replacement. There's plenty incentive for the three lads who are supposed to be doing it. Joe Linton is supposed to be in the last chance saloon. The word out of St. James's Park privately is that he's going to be given one more chance to justify himself, and if he doesn't do so, he will be allowed to go in the summer. So that's supposedly his incentive. Then you've got Andy Carroll and Dwight Gale, both out of contract at the end of this season. So their incentive is to get a new contract. Certainly in Carroll's case, he would want a new contract. I think Gale's already made up his mind he's going. His body language tells me totally that he's a miserable, disillusioned young man who is playing out his time before he takes a free transfer in the summer. I think he's already in the waiting room to go. But there is allegedly an incentive for the three men who are auditioning for Wilson's place. One is that Joe Linton's got his last chance, or he's gone. The other is that Carroll might earn himself a contract, and Gale might earn himself a contract. I don't see any of those three doing what is suggested of them. I don't think Andy Carroll is worthy of another contract at St. James's Park. He's got too many injury problems. If we cannot find somebody better next season than Andy Carroll, we go down, mind, if we somehow manage to stay up this season. Joe Linton is Joe Linton. Everybody that watches this program knows what I think of him and what Malcolm thinks of him, and probably yourself, Steve. And Gale, I think, is already in the waiting to go. So I don't think there is an honest answer to who, as Malcolm says, probably Carroll is the best of a bad bunch. Otherwise, you've got to do what I floated last week and mix it and go for the situation Newcastle went with when they had Keegan, Waddle and Beardsley as a front three, which was no out-and-out centre forward, but just three players, albeit in their case, by the way, absolute quality when you think of Waddle, Beardsley and Keegan. But whether you go for players like Almiron, Fraser and Sam Maximin, or Murphy coming into that equation, to play interwoven type of football up front without an orthodox number 9. Because since Bruce moved Wilson to play right side of attacking with with Almiron at the top of the diamond and Wilson one side and San Maximum another, Wilson wasn't going through the middle anymore. He was slightly right, the position that Gale, he just took Gale into Wilson's old position slightly on the right side. Does that work? It worked with Wilson in because Wilson's quality. Will it work with anybody else? I mean, I'm unhappy whoever plays as Wilson's replacement because the club didn't bother getting anyone to partner Wilson or to be able to stand. Had we all, everybody, not just all the Newcastle fans, all the critics, had we all not been saying, what happens if Wilson gets injured? And what happens? Wilson gets injured.
It's typical Newcastle, though. It is typical Newcastle. I mean, they had plenty opportunity to go out and bring somebody in on loan. You know, there's free agents out there. Daniel Sturridge isn't everyone's cup of tea, but it would have been another person who at least has scored goals in the Premier League. Josh King was available, you know, on a short-term contract till the end of the season. Could have got him. Josh Madger, ex-Sunderland striker, of course, could have got him in on loan from Bordeaux. There was plenty options out there to bring in somebody who can score goals, and you know, ultimately Newcastle didn't do it, primarily because Mike Ashley doesn't want to spend money because, you know, he's intending on still selling the football club, I would imagine. Same reason why Malcolm, he probably doesn't want to sack Steve Bruce. A lot of people thinking that if we get beat off Manchester United, that, you know, and the fact that he's now been given the dreaded vote of confidence, that we might see Bruce sacked. But I still don't think it'll happen, Malcolm, unless, and this is a big unless he's got someone lined up. You know, I just can't see it happening. I think we're stuck with Bruce now until the end of the season, certainly.
Okay, I hear what you say. Let me just chuck a little grenade in. Do you seriously think that Steve Bruce wants to stay in the job, or is he working his way to getting a sack and a nice payoff? Thank you very much.
Oh. John, what do you think? I mean, I don't think he's bothered either way. You know, but I don't think he's been bothered at any club he's been at because he knows he's going to get a payoff if he gets sacked. We've said this before on the show. It's the one job you get rewarded for being poor these days.
In all the years that he's been a manager, that has been the general trend. That he doesn't make it to 2 years as a manager and he gets paid off.
I mean, the obvious thing going back to the original question, guys, I don't think that Steve Bruce would be Newcastle losing Manchester United. Not for one moment do I think that'll happen, because I don't think that's Ashley's style. And I don't think, when I say it's not Ashley's style, I don't mean that he's this loyal guy that looks after his managers. He's trying to sell the club. Bruce isn't any problem to him, and he'd rather not have a problem by having to replace Bruce. And I don't think that a defeat at Manchester United, which Mike Ashley's probably privately expecting anyway, and of course Fulham will not have caught up Newcastle even if they get 3 points on, and it's that sort of thing that's going to make Ashley panic. And if it does happen between now and the end of the season, then the Gates of Geordie will no doubt see the season out as caretaker, because I think that was a significance of him coming in, is that there is a caretaker there if Steve Bruce is to go. And Steve Bruce won't walk, he would have to be sacked. But if he was sacked, you wouldn't see Ashley putting either Askew or Clemens into the caretaking job, because they go together as a package, really. But you could see him, I don't mean that he should, but you could see him putting Wilson in the job and saying, well, this guy used to be assistant manager at Everton, was assistant manager of the number one international side in the world, Belgium, and was a manager at Luton, albeit with absolutely no results whatsoever, isn't that? Yeah, but I'm certain that he would, a shocking record, Malcolm, but I'm certain that would happen. But it would happen so near the end of the season that we could be in a situation whereby we would be looking at an Alan Shearer and Rafa Benitez situation. You get a caretaker left in charge of the club with no time to save it, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's a horrendous thought. It really is, and I keep pointing back to the fact that when Bruce took the job, we'd had no less than 11 people didn't want the job. There was rejections all around, and who is going to come in now? I mean, when Bruce came in, it was at least Mike Ashley wasn't going to sell the club at the time. But now it's a different kettle of fish. He's clearly wanting to go. There's still a takeover potentially bubbling away in the background, and I can't see any manager taking it. But let's take this on a different path now. Jamal Lascelles, he's captaining that team, Malcolm, but he's not captaining the team.
No.
And I think his frailties are starting to come home to roost now in this relegation battle, because it is a relegation battle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. What's wrong with the guy? Is it simply the fact that he's not up to the job? Is it better giving it to somebody who is? I mean, I've always said Matt Ritchie would make a better captain, but he can't even get in the team.
Yeah, yes, I know. I think you're right about Ritchie. I think he would make a splendid captain. I think he leads by example anyway. Always has done. And I think the team sadly lack the way he carries himself on a football field. But to answer your question, Steve, if you remember, Newcastle, they suddenly started playing 3 centre halves, 5 at the back, 3 centre halves, and it seemed to be that it was at the insistence of one of the centre halves, the captain. The captain was insisting on 3. Why did he want 3 centre halves? Simply because he wanted cover for himself. Lascelles doesn't believe in himself, and I think he has little panic ups out on the pitch. He has a look around and go, oh dear me, I'm a bit exposed here. I've got the ball at my feet. What do I do? And you see opponents running at him, and he doesn't deal with that situation like a normal defender. That there seems to be nerves jangling all the while, and I don't have a confidence in him at all. I think he's very difficult to play with if you're the other centre half. Very difficult indeed. All the time you've got to be looking over your shoulder. Oh, where is he now? What's he doing? There's no sort of real consistency. Just as a centre half, you want to see them go, come on, let's push up. They don't push up. And that tells me that there is somebody in the back 4 who is frightened stiff. And I think that's Lascelles. I've thought that for a very long time. And when he first came into the club, thought, whoa, wow, this guy, if he can keep doing what he's doing and just keep steadily improving, what I feel he's done is gone backwards, a long way backwards. And with each step has lost a huge chunk of confidence.
Yeah, Gibbo, I mean, it's clear, isn't it? Lascelles just isn't really doing it, and he's not leading on the pitch, and we need a leader at this time.
There's no question about that. I mean, at the moment, when I look at Lascelles, I mean, Malcolm's right. It could well be something to do with the fact he's not now playing in 3, he's playing in a flat back 4. But what he's become because of that, to me, is a walking yellow card. He pushes people in the back. He whacks them from behind. He's a walking yellow card, free kick round the edge of the box, or 2 yellow cards, and we've got 10 men.
And it's all a lack of confidence, John.
Yes, absolutely. The difficulty is then when you were talking, Steve, about who then becomes skipper because he's not doing a skipper's job. I would agree. One of the guys that you would look to would be, under normal circumstances, would be Ritchie, because he's a real get up and get at him sort of guy. Sleeves rolled up, shouts and balls at people. But I think that he can't get in the team, so it's very difficult to make him skipper. And I wouldn't be surprised if he goes in the summer. He has been repeatedly linked, not just the last window, but the window before that. He's over 30 with a return to Bournemouth. His family's still in the south, and I've got a feeling that will come this summer. And therefore, if he was made skipper, it would be short term. But to be skipper, you've got to be in the team, and there's no way he's starting in the team at the moment. And you know, where does he go in the side? If it's a flat back four, he doesn't go in at left back. He's okay in a 5 at left wing back. Would he go in as an outside left? Well, that position at the moment, San Maximum. I certainly don't think Shelby's a skipper, who often gets the armband when Lascelles has been out with either COVID or an injury. He is not a skipper at all, because his game has gone backwards hugely for me. He is not the player he was. Not that he was ever a huge England player, but he's not the player he was. So that you then look at it, either Fernandez or Clark or of course the man that Malcolm wouldn't even have in the team, which but a lot of fans would give the captaincy to, which is Hayden.
Why do you think Dummett was dropped, John?
It's a good question.
Well, very good question, because when he come on, as he's the best defender that we've got, out and out defender. He is the best defender we've got. When he come on against Southampton as a sub, he actually battened down the hatches on our behalf. When we had 9 men, his performance on the left side of the last line of defenders was absolutely magnificent.
Yes, it was.
He is a top defender, and at the moment, and this is just my opinion, and the fans might well not agree, but when I looked at our back 4, and we are playing with a 4 now rather than a 5, when I looked at our back 4 at Chelsea, for me, the 2 fullbacks were absolutely horrendous, because they got defensively, Kraft and the young lad Lewis defensively got absolute taken. Now, I know a lot of fans say there wasn't a lot of help from the wing backs in front of them, but if you're playing as an orthodox fullback, you've got to be able to defend. And where you can say that Lewis, for example, having San Maximum in front of him is not going to be a shield for him. Well, the first thing you've got to say is, does he need a shield? The second thing you've got to say is, even if he had a shield, Lewis wasn't picking up his man at set pieces. That's how Tino Verma scored the second goal. It was from a corner. He was standing marking the kid just inside the left-hand corner of the penalty area. The kid showed some movement. Lewis stayed stock still, and the bloke put it in unmarked himself. Twice on a corner, he lost his man. He defensively, the lad has got a lot to learn. And as for Kraft, well, he's not going to learn anymore. He's just not good enough. Full point. So we've got problems. Long-winded, because we're going to Manchester United, who on the flanks are very progressive, whether it's Rashford or Martial, out wide, or Greenwood, out wide, they can be a handful. And I would play Dummett at left back in a flat back 4 at Manchester United on again.
Go on, Malcolm.
He'll defend.
Dummett's the best defender.
He'll defend, Malcolm. He'll defend, and the left back that plays at Manchester United will have to defend, mate.
Yeah. Yes. And also what he does is he's organising all the time. He's organising those around him. But what quite horrified me, and you were sort of hitting on it, John, was for that Werner goal, there was Werner and one other Chelsea player, and this is from a corner that's just been sort of flicked on to the far post, and they were totally on their own. There was nobody anywhere near them other than Darlow. He was the nearest to them.
Lewis was supposed to be there. Lewis was supposed to be there, Malcolm, and he was there originally, but by the time the kick was taken, he never moved. They did, and they were standing on their own when the ball came across.
Yes. There is one thing that I generally don't understand in the game, and that is that it seems that for set pieces, hardly any clubs have people on the post. And as a goalkeeper, dear me, I can get so far either way, but I can't get into the corners by the posts, and so I want people there. I can just imagine what Frank Clark is saying, who for me was the best, just about the best defender, and not just how he performed on the pitch, but he had a great defensive brain, and I used to so enjoy talking with him about defending. I learned a huge amount from him, and I cannot see Frank allowing posts to be unmarked. No defender on there when a corner kick is coming in, or I just think it's bizarre, and of course we saw the prime example of what happens when guys aren't on the post, when people aren't being picked up. Two guys on the far post fighting each other to stick the ball in the net, and that just killed Newcastle off totally in the game.
Interesting one from Chris Marshall. He says, do you think the squad is better than the one that we had when we went down in 2016, Gibbo?
Good question. Because the simple question that every fan is asking themselves, Steve, is this the most horrible squad ever, and a relegation squad, or a squad full of championship players, or is it a squad that's better than the results, not actually better, but significantly better, but is not getting the direction either tactically or confidence-wise from the sides? I don't think it's the worst side Newcastle United have had in their history, when everybody's fit and they can put out a decent side, their first choice side. So much of it is confidence, so much of it is not knowing exactly what they're going to do. They've played as a 5, they've played as a 4, they've played, I mean, look at Almiron. If you're Almiron, you've played outside right, you've played outside left, you've played right wing back, almost right back on occasions. A few weeks ago, when he was coming back and making challenges and sliding tackles near his own 18-yard line, and now he's playing as a 10. They obviously don't know what to do with him. And if you look at the situations in centre midfield, I mean, Sean Longstaff was going to be the next Mr. Wonderful. He's lucky if he can get on the bench these days. What's happened to Matty Longstaff? There's the young lad Anderson, who fleetingly was sort of introduced via the subs bench and has disappeared. Where there's total confusion. Which is our best two centre halves when they're all fit? And I'll tell you something. I looked at as well, Malcolm. I looked at the side at Chelsea. And looking at body language, which convinced me, having watched for a long time, that Gale's on his way and is so far disillusioned it's untrue. But I was looking at the young Arsenal lad who was so bubbly up here against Southampton when he scored on his debut. And I tell you what, he was shell-shocked down there. And my worry is he going to become so dispirited that everything he was capable of giving this side, he will not be giving? Because if we produce a performance at Manchester United like we did at Chelsea, we get cuffed, mind. And if we get cuffed badly again, how much is this guy going to be bubbling to do the job for us? Or how sick is he going to get very quick? Because he's a young boy. And by the way, once we get Manchester United out of the way, the next 4 matches are massive because they're all matches that are, in theory, winnable if you are going to stay up. And therefore, you need points in those 4 matches. In a way, this is the crunch coming, because maybe you can have an excuse for not beating Chelsea, not losing the way we did, so gutless. But you might well lose to Chelsea. You might well lose to Manchester United. But the next 4 games, there's no might well lose. That's they are the games where you get your points to see off Fulham, who might be coming up on the rails, etc. So the job's to be done. And by the way, lads, just to say, if we do not get the job done, and I think we'll just stay up, because of the points we've already got, and a couple of more wins out of those 4 games might do it for us. But the last 2 games of season, gentlemen, are Sheffield United at home and Fulham away. What a finale to the season that! If we are still in a mess then, Steve, what are those 2 games going to be like?
Preceded in the 3rd last game by champions-elect Man City, so they'll not be looking to do us any favours.
Yes. Well,
Mal, the
I was going to say, I don't think we'll win that one.
No, the question the fans are asking in the chat is Dubravka Darlow. It's something we've talked about before, but we'll talk about it again because lots of people are asking the question. Is it time to bring Dubravka back in? I mean, I've made the point on the show this week about, the spine of the team being weaker because we've lost Wilson, so we've got no idea who we can play up front. It doesn't look like there's goals up front. I've took a little bit of flack for it, but I've criticised Shelby heavily on the programme because I think he's the weak link in the middle. Lascelles is the weak link at centre-half. And some people seem to think that Dubravka is the better keeper of the 2. You should bring Dubravka in. So I think we've got a weak middle. My way of managing my Sunday League team, Mal, was you defend from the front. And it's clear we're not defending from the front. We've got slackers.
We're attacking.
Yeah, we've got slackers through the middle. It's probably making Darlow look bad, you know what I mean, in a lot of ways because he's having a lot to do. But he's had a lot to do all season. He's not let us down.
Look, he's been the busiest goalkeeper in the Premiership by far. It's by a country mile, and of course he's going to let goals in because he's just having shots raining in at him all the while. He's got one of the worst defences that I've seen in a very long time in front of him, and I think he's pulling off absolute heroics. When a goalkeeper is doing that, you don't drop him and bring somebody else in, not at all. What they should be doing is looking to strengthen in front of him, working on the back 4, getting them better organised, working about pushing up. And instead of dropping off all the while, and working on the midfield to get them quicker in support of what's in front. Let's not start wanting to drop the fella who's probably been the best of all the 11 players that have been in the side. I think he's been absolutely terrific. He's looked to rule his box as best he can with a not very good back 4 in front of him, and not helped by the fact they just keep dropping right off on him.
Yeah, what do you think, John?
For me, leave Darlow in between the sticks. It's hard on Dubravka, but that's the way football goes. And until Darlow is actually making mistakes, I think he should stay there.
What do you think, John, on the goalkeeping question that the fans are asking?
Very interesting one, because it's probably the one position where we're very well served, where we've got 2 guys who are outstanding. We're not well served like that in any other position because Wilson has got nobody pushing him for that position, and we haven't outstanding players in any other position. 2 outstanding players for any one position apart from this. The difficulty I've got, and I follow every single thing Malcolm has said, and Malcolm has been a successful manager in the Football League, so boy, he knows what he's talking about. If it come to push with me, I'm such a Dubravka fan and have been from the first day he arrived here. I've been overwhelmed by how well Darlow's done when he come in, because I will hold my hands up and say I worried. When Dubravka got the bad injury just before the season started, I worried, because I thought that Darlow would not be able to step up to the plate. He has stepped up to the plate terrifically. I just have the feeling that inevitably, when you are an Aunt Sally, as he has become this season, you get peppered because of what's in front of you, both in the fullback positions and the two centre halves and the way the rest of the team can't defend. You get to a situation where it becomes more difficult. And you will get people that will look at him and say, when he pushed the ball out that was stuck in by Giroud, you push it wide, you don't push it straight in front of you, so that somebody like Giroud, who's a good finisher, can finish. Bottom line, you've asked us, and I'm going against my old mate here, I would bring Dubravka back.
All right.
Mark Bayer says, can we not play them both in goal? Mike Stewart says the same, just play both goalies.
Yeah.
That's the answer. We'll play both of them, and we'll play all the centre forwards and don't bother with the midfield at all.
Yeah.
And it's 6-6.
We'll play all right with 9, Mal. We'll play all right with 9. Brilliant. Big shout out to our sponsors, Spider VPN, who are sponsoring the StreamYard application this month, and a big shout out to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend in Newcastle, and also a big shout out to Jab Signature, who make all of our flyers. And Mal, I often get sent photographs in and various things, and this is one I got sent a while back actually. We often talk about your day on Superstars, and I'm just wondering, this is a one you probably haven't seen for a while. Look at that. What a motley crew.
That was at Crystal Palace.
Crystal Palace.
Not the football club, but that's the huge...
Rodney Marsh, Freddie Starr and George Best?
That's it, yeah. Yeah, we were doing a thing for Freddie Starr's Christmas special.
Brilliant.
Yeah. And we had a really funny day. And he is an absolute madman. Total madman. I really mean it. You know, what you've seen of him on television is nothing like he is off camera.
Was there a night out involved?
No.
I was going to say that would be a story and a half.
No,
I left Bestie and Marshy to that one.
There wasn't a night out involved, but there was a week out involved.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Great stuff. Any photos of Mal? I love looking at them. There's some great photos. So anybody's got them, ping them into to the show. Let's talk about the relegation battle, lads. And it's a simple question. I did send this to you by email earlier today, when I often come up with some of the topics that we're going to talk about. And it's a simple question, Malcolm. Will we stay up? Do you think?
Dear me. Yes, I think that Newcastle will. Because I think that every now and again they'll be picking up a point, and the just a short while ago, it was the biggest gap between third bottom and the next club out of the bottom three. The biggest gap that there's ever been in the Premiership at this time of the year, and so. Stats don't lie, and you can normally follow the path of them, and so I have a feeling that no, Newcastle won't, but they are seriously going to have to improve on what they're doing at the moment. They really must. And I suppose the club could say, well, we've got injuries and this and that and so on, but the players who are going out, there's a lot of them just not performing, not doing it. Defenders who can't defend, you know. And so I'm not just blaming players. But I'm blaming the coaching staff, the management. I'm blaming the owner. And also the people who have gone out and bought some of the players that we're having to suffer at the moment.
John?
They're just not good enough for the Premiership. Who on earth is bringing these players in? I really don't know.
I would say that when push comes to shove, I don't think we will go down. No, I think we'll survive. But I think we'll survive because the bottom three are so bad this particular season. As Malcolm said, and it's absolutely true, and I saw the stat that Malcolm's referring to, this is the biggest gap between third bottom and fourth bottom at this stage of a season since the Premier League was formed. And I said it earlier in this programme, where this could have become interesting is if Fulham had won at Burnley last night and then won on Saturday at home to Sheffield United. There would have been 1 point behind Newcastle when Newcastle went to Manchester United. That would have changed the complexion completely. But what they do regularly, the good news for Fulham is they don't get beat. The bad news is they don't win. They draw again and again and again. But if you're making up 7 points, which it was before last night, 10 points before that, and you're making them up 1 point at a time, it's a heck of a long drive in to overtaking the fourth bottom team, who only need to get a win. Newcastle only need to win the next game after Manchester United, and they go 3 points further ahead of Fulham, who are going to, if they do it in draws, are going to take the rest of it. They're going to run out of time. And I think we will survive only because the bottom three are so poor. I think the other sides that were in the mix with us, like Burnley and like Brighton, are not going to be in the mix at the end of the season at all. I think it's going to be 3 from 4, the bottom three and us. But I think we will make it, but we had better make it before we play Sheffield United and Fulham in the last 2 games, unless Sheffield United are already down and therefore demoralised. That's why the next 4 games are so important to Newcastle United. They can get the odd points, a draw and a win, or perhaps 2 wins out of 4, and kill off the lingering doubts. Capable of that, but it is awful the way we're going about it. And what really, really infuriates me is that we're supposed to accept this as a work in progress. This is Newcastle improving game by game, season, week by week, month by week, season by season. No, we're not improving whatsoever. We're going backwards. And it's fierce because if we survive as fourth bottom, then what's next season hold, unless there's new owners and new people running the club from the touchline? You know, we're not getting any better. Season after season after season, we talk about is whether Newcastle can stay up. For a club of this size, with 50,000 devoted fans at home games, what the heck are we doing talking season after season on whether or not we're going to manage to stay up? It's criminal.
Yeah, it is. It is. Got 10 minutes left. If anyone's got any questions, get them in. Obviously, keep on commenting on the various things that we are talking about tonight. We're going to look ahead now to the Manchester United game, lads. Of course, it's at the weekend. Newcastle travel to. Yeah, we've travelled to Old Trafford, sadly. Not a happy hunting ground, it has to be said. It's a 7 o'clock kickoff, live on BT Sports. Obviously a little bit too early for team news from both sides, but we do know that Jeff Hendrick will return to the squad. Whether he'll be selected is another matter. We also know that Fabian Shaw, Javier Manquillo and Callum Wilson all are injured. As for Man United, they are in Europa League action tonight, so we will have a better idea of what players they will have available come the end of the game tonight. Paul Tierney is refereeing, Stuart Atwell's on VAR, and as I say, it's 7 o'clock kickoff live on BT Sports. So, Mal, it's not a happy hunting ground for Newcastle at the best of times, but when you're struggling and you're missing your top goal scorer, I can't see anything other than a defeat down at Old Trafford on Sunday.
No, I noticed one of the viewers had put the comment in to remind us that it wasn't that long ago that they beat Southampton 9-0. And they're in that kind of a frame of mind at the moment. And I have to say, well done, Ollie Solskjaer, because the first 3 months of the season were everybody, newspapers and all sorts, were saying, oh, he'd be sacked in the morning, and it just went on and on and on. And he survived all of that and has really turned them around on the pitch. And I just wonder, with all the years that Steve Bruce spent at Old Trafford, very successful years, I have to say, is he rubbing his hands saying, right, let's get at them? Or is he actually folding his white flag to put in his bag to take up there?
That's the big concern, isn't it? I've always said, I've always felt his allegiance, shall we say, lies with the United that plays out of Old Trafford, not the one that plays out of St James's Park, Mal. I've got no proof of that. However, I do feel that's where his loyalties lie.
I don't think I disagree with you on that. It was a very good time there that he spent, very successful. But as I say, he was one thing as a player, something totally different as a manager.
Yeah, I mean, look, Steve Howe gave over 10 years of service to Newcastle United, but he's a Sunderland fan. He's a Sunderland fan at heart. He loves to see Newcastle do well. But he answered honestly when he was on the show the other week, if it came to a cup final between Newcastle and Sunderland, he would want Sunderland to win. He's a Sunderland fan. So it would be interesting. We may never know who Steve Bruce supports. He's very, very canny when he gets asked that question.
Yes, isn't he just? And at the same time, we're talking about Fulham on one side of the relegation line and Newcastle just on the other. Of course, I grew up as a lad supporting Fulham.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think Fulham are a bit of a yo-yo side at the moment, and I cannot imagine Newcastle getting relegated yet again. I really can't under Mike Ashley, and I think that personally, I think that Mike Ashley really should step in, because he is running the risk of the club virtually halving in value if he gets relegated.
Yeah.
And so he's going to lose an absolute fortune if the takeover should happen in the summer, as I think has sort of been mooted.
The club is not worth the money that at the moment he is hoping to get from PIF. And if Newcastle are relegated, then God knows what's going to happen. God knows what's going to happen.
And probably more.
It is not worth thinking about. It is not worth thinking about. Neither's a trip to Old Trafford, John. It's a one to give you sleepless nights.
No. Two sides of the coin, like is always in any situation. On the obvious side of the coin is the fact that you said it wasn't a happy hunting ground. In the last 50 years, half a century, Newcastle in the league have only won twice at Old Trafford, and I'm not giving that guy sitting in the middle of those three here a chance to win a bet here, because he was part of one side, which was 1972, when after we'd lost to Hereford, we went to Manchester United with Low Best and Charlton and won 2-0. That was 1972. The other time we won.
John, if you sorry to interrupt, but if you remember, from 2 o'clock onwards, the crowd.
Oh yes, I do remember. Yeah,
Hereford.
Yeah, absolutely. The other time we won, incidentally, was 2013 when Johan Cabaye scored the goal. Yeah. So the winning goal, 1-0. And by the way, so all that history is against us. Also against us, the fact that when Manchester United come up here, they kindly gifted us an opening goal inside 2 minutes when Luke Shaw scored an own goal, and then proceeded to cuff us 4-1, and now we're having to go down there. Now, that's all the bad news. The good news, if you were any side bar Newcastle United that was next up at Old Trafford, is that they are better to play, if you deal just in facts and figures, they are better to play at Old Trafford this season than away from home. They've lost 5 times in the Premier League at Old Trafford this season. They haven't lost once in the Premier League away from home. They've got away from home, they're unbeaten. The record at home, they've lost 5 out of 12. So better, in theory, to go there than have them come to your place. Also, with us, do you realise, yes, we have this 9-goal scenario with Southampton that everybody goes on about, but actually their record is they've only won 2 of their last 7 Premier League games. And that 9-0, which was against 9 men eventually, is the only time they've won in Yonks by more than a single goal. So they're not as fearsome as you might think they are on that current form, except there's an Achilles heel here, and that is they're playing Newcastle United. And if we go on facts and figures, we've lost 11 of our last 15. So let's forget about all that good news. That would be good news if anybody else was going to Old Trafford, bar us. But the way we go, I mean, I made a plea on this program last week, you probably remember, guys, saying, please play at Chelsea with the commitment, the passion, etc., that you did against Southampton when we won with 9 men in the end. Please show that again, and don't be afraid of Chelsea, and you might have a chance. What did we do? Played with none of that passion, none of that commitment, none of that belief, and we timidly put our head on the chopping block and got chopped. If we play like that again tomorrow, we get well done. I mean, I'll leave one thought, guys. There's a midfield player at Manchester United called Bruno Fernandes, who has scored 9 goals this season. The midfield player. The whole of the team in the Premier League have only scored 6 more goals than a midfield player has scored himself at Manchester United. Now, What does that tell us about the difference between the two sides? It's enormous, and I'm sorry, but any fleeting hope that we had as a result of watching the performance, which was away from home, watching the guts against Southampton when we won, has been decimated by the performance at Chelsea. And no, I don't hold any hope out Manchester United, and no, I don't think we'll score.
Life Goals is hoping
I agree, John.
Life Goals is hoping to take up a bit of journalism, John. So just before we finish, he's just wanting a little bit of advice. That's the avenue he's looking to get into. What advice would you give him?
Good question. Apart from in a devotion to the job, which you must have, and I surmised it without question, he's got that. The biggest thing is to be your own man and be true to yourself. Because if you can't be true to yourself, you're not going to con the fans. I mean, for example, Steve Bruce was a very, very good friend of mine when he was a young kid playing at Wallsend Boys Club, and when he was this outstanding centre-half. When he was touted for the Newcastle job, I prayed that he wasn't going to get it for his sake and for my sake, because while I loved him as a person, I wouldn't go down the road that other hacks have gone down who have similar feelings for Steve, which is let that colour your judgment. Professionally, you've got to tell it the way it is. And as a journalist, this young man who's coming into the game, and I wish him all the best. It's a wonderful profession. We're privileged to be in it. But be true to yourself. Because if you sell your soul, you let know where to go. You've got to be true to your own feelings and then hope that that's respected by the readers. But first and foremost, don't let other things colour your judgment.
Sad to say, those people who were predicting Malcolm going the full show, because we've gone slightly into overtime, we've lost Malcolm. And he's frozen, John.
Oh, he has. I thought he hasn't had Vortex, has he? He hasn't got Vortex. It's not the frozen face. No. With a minute to go, he's gone. He never told us the score at Manchester United. He did tell us we'd lose, but he never told us the score.
He didn't.
He's barking up another tree now, I think.
He managed to get to 1859, says Dave Harrison. But there we go. As Mark Byers says, he says Frozen like Walt Disney. We'll leave it with Mark Byers. That's a classic. John, as always, absolute pleasure to have you on. I'm back tomorrow 5:30 with Steve Hasty and Neil Mitchell, the three amigos. John, have a good weekend, mate. Don't let the football spoil it.
By now it doesn't, because I know what's coming, mate. All the best to you and all the best to everybody who's listening. Look forward to seeing you next week, pal.
Attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all